Satoru Gojo is so insanely powerful that even Kenjaku, the author of Jujutsu Kaisen himself, had no other choice but to temporarily completely remove him from the story during the Shibuya incident for there to be any stakes or conflict left in the story that Gojo wouldn't just easily solve immediately by himself. However, there's one thing that has really held him back in this fight against these strong curses, which is trying not to be a mass murderer, or if you want to phrase it a little bit more nicely, I guess, his conscience. Now, Gojo here does accept that he can save every single person while a monstrous curse is wreaking havoc. However, he'll still always stop short of killing any innocent bystanders himself, right? And his enemies knew this, and that's why they created the perfect plan to seal Gojo away in the prison realm during the Shibuya incident. So happy Halloween. And of course, having Gojo sealed in the prison realm changed the entire world of Jujutsu Kaisen. As many characters have hinted at, Satoru Gojo's power as a Jujutsu sorcerer is pretty much the only thing preventing curses from completely overrunning Japan. To be precise, this era's sorcerers are supposedly a lot weaker than those of the past, and without Gojo's amazing limitless and six eyes powers keeping the curses at bay, the entire world is at risk, which is of course exactly why it's so bad that the plan to seal Gojo ended up working. But what if it didn't? Now, as you'll remember, Gojo could have destroyed all of his attackers in no time at all, but his attack also would have caught the hundreds, if not thousands of innocent civilians trapped in Shibuya with him as well. But what if instead of actually holding back for them, Satoru Gojo had just said screw it and got to display his full power? And so if just this once Gojo had decided to pass on his Batman type no-kill rule, how would he fare against the combined efforts of Jogo, Dagon, Hanami, Choso, Mahito, and his old best friend Geto, who actually isn't really Geto, but you know what I mean. Now, there are a few possible reasons why Gojo might decide not to hold back and go all out here. First off, maybe his Geto senses go tingling off and he realizes that if he doesn't put an end to his old pal right then and there, no matter what cost, there'll be a lot of casualties. Maybe all the train tracks here in Shibuya reminds him of the old trolley problem, in case you're familiar with it, and he does the math and realizes that he'll save way more people if he sacrifices all of the train station people. Or, maybe he just wants to get into the Halloween spirit by committing mass murder. The reason doesn't really matter. What matters is how much he's going to crush these curses right here. And so let's start with the first row of combatants, which is the disaster curses. Now, this is the second time that Gojo had to deal with Jogo and the third time that he's had to deal with Hanami. And so really, he has no more patience at all for any of these special great curses. In the actual story, he toys with them as he has always done, but not this time around. In fact, he's just going to absolutely obliterate these guys. Now, due to their teamwork, Hanami is able to cancel out Gojo's curse technique, making Jogo the first curse in a while who actually is able to touch the world's strongest sorcerer, which is a big mistake. Now, Jogo's power is fire and lava, which does burn bright and red, but you know what else is red? Gojo's curse technique, reversal red. Now, this insanely strong jutsu power passed down through the Gojo family has the ability to repel things using a huge shockwave. And so Jogo has just grasped onto Gojo's arm, and note to the author Gege Okutami, thanks so much for making these characters' names so similar, makes it so much easier to narrate this. But yeah, Gojo's grip slightly burns his sleeve, but his single eye barely has time to process what's happening next before he sees the red dot shining at the end of Gojo's finger. And so Jogo's body goes flying at an insane speed, and unfortunately causing a few innocent bystanders to spontaneously burst into flames on the way. But hey, so far, technically, Gojo didn't kill anyone himself, and we're still gonna count those deaths as being caused by Jogo's flying, fiery body, I guess. And so the volcano curse just smacks right into the barrier outside Shibuya Station at such a speed that he instantly is destroyed in a fiery explosion. But again, someday, if enough people fear a volcanic eruption, he'll be born once again. So, see you again someday, Jogo, but up Up next is Hanami, who would have been very disturbed by his friend's death if he would see it, but since he's only got these 2 twigs for eyes, it probably won't bother him too much. And actually, speaking of those twigs, by the time that he registers that Jogo is gone, Gojo has grabbed his eye branches and ripped them straight out of his head. You see, the mangaka Gege Akutami already wrote Hanami the perfect death scene, so he'll just get destroyed immediately after this by being crushed by Gojo's infinite technique. I mean, Hanami does love nature, so I think it's just fitting that they'd be destroyed by a freak of nature. Now, currently, Dagon, the ocean disaster curse, is shyly hiding behind a post in the subway station, but not for long, of course. Now, you'll know that Dagon holds power over water, the peaceful blue ocean, and it just so happens that Gojo also has something blue in his arsenal, his curse technique, Lapse Blue. And so Dagon isn't going to be hiding for very long now, because he'll just be pulled towards Gojo with really immense force, breaking straight through the pillar, and he might get a few innocent bystanders soaked along the way, but by the time that he gets to Gojo, it's not long before this poor curse is also turned into sushi. And in the actual story, we eventually get to see the full range of Dagon's actual powers. There's a reason that he's a special grade curse along with his teammates, but all you anime viewers will just have to keep watching to find out what he can do, because in our what if scenario, this guy is just super dead right now. But the curses have one more ally available to buy time for the rest of the reinforcements to arrive. Choso, the cursed womb, death painting. And so this very powerful combination of a human and cursed spirit wants to avenge his brothers, who are the other death paintings. And so using his power of blood manipulation, he fires a shot of blood at Gojo. However, as we know, Gojo is untouchable. I think you look very touchable. Oh, okay. Not untouchable after all. And so using his infinity powers, the blood appears to stop just short of striking him in the face. However, in reality, the blood is actually still approaching him, just so slowly that it will never actually reach him, because it's traveling through the technically infinite amount of space between any 2 objects. I mean, math is hard, I guess. Now, being not at all hit by Choso's attack means that Gojo can easily approach the death painting and eliminate him with his deadly force. Pick one you like. And so Choso sadly won't get to avenge his brother, but on the bright side, he does get to see them really soon. And it's at this point that a subway car rolls into the station. Out, of course, bursts Mahito, laughing maniacally as he reveals his train full of transfigured humans. Surely Gojo didn't count on this, he thinks before looking around. His eyes go wide as he sees Gojo's beautiful blue eyes staring back at him. And he's strangely not occupied at all by fighting the other disaster curses. Instead, all of Mahito's friends so far are like super dead at this point. How will Gojo now deal with all of these transfigured humans? Well, kind of similar to the way that he does in the actual story, by activating his domain expansion, Unlimited Void. This extension of Gojo's limitless ability brings infinity right into the minds of everyone exposed to it. It unleashes an infinite amount of raw information right into the brains of its victims, completely immobilizing them. They feel and see and hear everything all at the same time and are just completely overwhelmed, left to slowly die. Now, Gojo's special trick during the Shibuya incident originally was to, of course, spare the normal civilians this fate by only activating his domain expansion for 0.2 seconds, leaving them just unconscious but not quite killing them. However, this time, not holding back, his Geto senses are tingling as his old friend and enemy shows up with the prison realm. And so, in an instant, he knows 2 things. 1, this is not Geto, I totally killed him. And 2, if I let whoever this imposter is do whatever they're planning to do, things are going to end up really badly. And so you can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, I guess, and in this case, Gojo's eggs are innocent civilians. However, along with all of the regular humans, this also takes out Mahito's legion of transfigured humans as well. And on top of everything, of course, at this point, Gojo would be big mad. Not only has his bestie's corpse been taken over by some sort of evil force, but this team of baddies has gotten him to break his one rule and kill a bunch of innocent people. And not only does he kill them by using his domain expansion, but he essentially forces them to suffer for what feels like eternity. He's not about to let anyone get away with that. Now, Mahito here can transfigure someone into a monstrous new form simply by touching them. He does so by actually changing the shape of their soul itself, and the body just follows this new twisted shape. However, as established, it's pretty much impossible to actually touch Gojo.
Are you sure about that?
And let me test that again. Proven wrong once again. You can be touched. And now you're showing me your butt. How nice. What a Gojo thing to do. Now, Mahito's domain expansion would of course not have enough power to actually overcome Gojo's unlimited void. And so failing to touch and transform Gojo, Mahito would try to run away, but he'd be unable to make any sort of progress because the space in front of him would infinitely extend, making it really impossible for him to get away from Gojo before he was hit by the full effect of unlimited void. However, other than Mahito, Pseudo Geto is a full other story though, because this sorcerer has been around the block and knows more than anyone about Gojo's real abilities. And so using a simple domain, he nullifies the effects of unlimited void and brings the two back to a more even playing ground. And so Geto would use his signature ability to fight against Gojo as well, which is summoning the cursed spirits that he's captured with his curse technique. However, just like everyone else, the spirits would have a very hard time even hitting Gojo, and at this point we're dealing with a just extremely angry version of him, which is of course the scariest version of Gojo. Now, he has one technique left that he's been saving up, and Geto is the perfect person to use it on. And so combining his red and blue powers, he uses his hollow purple technique, which is the same power that he developed originally in order to defeat Toji Fushiguro. And so this immense blast of pure energy would absolutely destroy Pseudo Geto before he even gets to tauntingly reveal his evil brain or his hidden identity. Unfortunately, Hollow Purple would also absolutely destroy the Shibuya station and most of the people in it. Yikes. Now, ultimately, you could argue that this might be worth it based on how many additional people of Japan this move would actually save. Though I'm not about to get into any moral discussions here about whether this is ethical or not. And while also remaining somewhat vague, there are probably still going to be some innocent people who die in Shibuya, whether Gojo kills them or not. So the only difference is whether he gets sealed, and even more people have to die eventually. And so after the sweeping finisher move, the show would be pretty much over. With the disaster curses and Pseudo Geto all out of the way, the biggest threats to humanity right now are gone, and Jujutsu High School can carry on business as usual, saving Japan from curses that are not special great. You know, just regular run-of-the-mill curses. And so from here on out, the focus would basically be on Yuji going on a quest to find the remainders of Sukuna's fingers and devouring them all like a delicious gourmet meal until he's finally executed by the world's worst school administration, like, of all time. And meanwhile, Gojo would probably be suffering from crippling PTSD after having killed a bunch of innocent people by his own hands, or his own curse technique, I should say. Therapy is obviously a much smaller price to pay than Japan being overrun by curses though, so hopefully he can learn to forgive himself and return to the same old Gojo that we all know and love. And speaking of that Gojo that we know and love, obviously he's one of the coolest characters in all of anime, but if you want to learn exactly what makes him such an amazingly written character, you can check out my character analysis of him right here. Thanks for watching.